So we just finished, this is Dr. Paul, we just finished our personal injury attorney seminar. It's actually for attorneys, and we're here with Vince. Vince is an attorney in Montana. And you've been practicing how long?
About 5 years.
5 years, okay, a little while. Not too long, but a little while, okay. And then just roughly on a scale of, you've been to personal injury seminars before?
I have, yes.
You have? And on a scale of 0 to 10, where would you say, how would you list this personal injury attorney seminar?
I'd have to give it a 10. It's been the most informative. I feel like I've learned more about personal injury in this seminar than I have in all the other ones.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So in 5 years, all the seminars you've taken, you feel like this was easily the one that gave you the most information in processing a personal injury case?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go into why. Well, let me ask you, why? Why is it that you felt like this was so helpful and beneficial?
Well, just the overwhelming amount of information on what doctors that I have in my cases aren't doing for me when it comes to their documentation and how they'd be able to help me if this went to a trial or
You didn't know that before you came in here, did you?
I didn't.
Let's walk through a few of those. Let's go through the diagnosis category. Most attorneys don't know that there's actually 7 major common injury diagnoses that give impairment ratings. You weren't familiar with those prior to coming in here, were you?
No,
Okay.
I honestly thought that ligaments were soft tissue.
Soft tissue.
Because that's what I was told.
And then your common diagnosis, we're getting worse, cervical sprain strain or lumbar sprain strain?
Yes.
Okay, which is the worst diagnosis possible. You see why that's like the worst diagnosis possible, doesn't give an impairment rating, and then it's like a domino effect to just everything. Okay, so now there's a difference. You actually learned the 7 most common connective tissue injuries now, haven't you?
Yep.
Yeah. And prior to today, you've had, in the last 5 years, you've had none of your doctors document those injuries. Is that what you're telling me?
Not unless it was one of the doctors that are under your program.
Yeah. So essentially you haven't.
So no.
When everybody, so in 5 years, all those cases, no doctors are documenting the most 7 common personal injuries. Let's go to number 2, which is the impairment. How often were you getting impairment ratings?
Rarely.
What percent would you say? 10%?
10%.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, why is that important? Now you've learned what's the single most important factor for an injury award is the impairment. Was there a permanent impairment?
Right.
So 90% of the time, your doctors weren't even including the single most important document, and they couldn't because they didn't give the proper diagnosis.
That's right.
You can see that now, can't you?
I can.
Is this getting worse and worse, or what? I mean, this
Well, it's getting better and better.
for you,
For me.
yeah. Now, okay. So we went from diagnosis to impairments, and then same with activities of daily living.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how important that was and how to document it, and especially if it was permanent. Can you see now how that cannot be documented as permanent if there's not a permanent impairment?
Yes.
Did your previous doctors try to document any type of permanent activities of daily living?
It would be just brief mentions in their notes about, patient can't do this, patient can't do that, or patient complains about not being able to, reach the top shelf in the cabinet.
But not an impairment index?
No impairment index, no impairment rating.
And when they did give those limitations, did they say it was just short term?
No.
Or did they say they were going to have them forever?
It was just, like I said, just to mention it.
Oh, wow.
It didn't give any what's going to happen in the future
Okay.
or anything like that.
So, and that's the second most important category. Now, you know that now.
Mm-hmm.
So the impairment's number 1, and how did it cause pain and restrictions with the activities of daily living are the 2 most important categories for the finance. So in 5 years, you hadn't been getting them. Is this like unbelievably clear why you're getting stuck with low ball offers?
Yeah.
And then that takes us to the last category of the injury award, which is the prognosis. Have you been getting any kind of prognosis, permanent prognosis? Well, you can't. Have they been trying to give any kind of prognosis?
I've had a few try and give me prognosis, but without, like you said, without a impairment rating, how do you give a prognosis?
Yeah.
So I've been asking for these future medicals or future
Right.
prognosis.
Well, now you know exactly what to ask for.
And I think I was doing the paradigm shift where I'm just asking for this amount without having the backup to prove.
So you weren't getting it, but you were trying to ask them for what's the prognosis and need for future care.
Mm-hmm.
Have they been giving it to you?
Some do.
Okay, because now you know they can't give a prognosis and need for future care without an impairment rating.
Right. Well, I actually got some, prognoses without an impairment rating.
And if that goes to court, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's real easy to destroy the chiropractor on that, and of course, that ruins the whole case.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it doesn't even have to go to court. You know that now, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you do not want to submit you now know you don't want to submit a prognosis and need for future care the rest of their life without an impairment rating, right? That's going to look bad, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and again, as I wrap up here with you, what would you say if there was, because we covered a lot of topics, didn't we? What would you say, like, there was one thing that was like, that was good? I didn't realize that was really good. I got to remember that. And was there any one particular thing that really stood out?
I really like the 12 steps, and then the 7 that you really focus on that you need for your
That made it clear, didn't it?
Yeah,
that made it real simple. Yeah, for attorneys, and I do that. We try to simplify and go, make sure you're looking at, if you do that, can you save how you're going to pretty much save your butt with lowball offers just by knowing that little bit.
Right.
Last question. We explained the 3 phases of healing and why it causes, based on that, why a patient has permanent injuries or not, and how and why they have permanent restrictions to some degree, and maybe sometimes why there's normal no pain, and why some areas they do have pain. How did you like that?
I thought that was great. I'd never had anyone show me how someone actually heals and how it changes your anatomy, I guess.
Well, the next question to you, because you're an attorney, how important is that now that you know that for the injury award?
I think it's very important.
It's important for the impairment and to be able to explain the impairment indexes and ADLs. If you don't have it, you don't have any of it. And
Right.
there goes your injury award. Yeah. All right, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
take
it.
care.
Yeah.